How's it going, folks? This is Mike Murtis, and along with me here, I got my brother Matt Murtis, and today we're going to be reviewing Destiny on the Xbox One as well as the PlayStation 4, and I believe it's actually available for the Xbox 360 and the PS3 as well. So we're kind of going to be going through our individual thoughts on the game and then commentating on each other's thoughts and then doing just an overall review of this game altogether. So let's get right into it and let's talk about the story. Now, in my opinion, the story had such huge potential considering how huge the universe is in the actually in the game, but not really fleshed out because it's so big. I don't think the writers of this had enough time to really flesh out each individual race that you fight and some of the background story of the game. It just leaves a lot to be desired. And even as you're going through the game and you're kind of being told stuff, like there's a lot of times where you're going, who is this? Why am I fighting them? Am I supposed to know who this person is? It's very vague in certain terms.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty vague too. It didn't seem like there was really much story development. You kind of got thrown into the mix of everything, and I was under the impression I was only going to be fighting two different types of enemies, and then all of a sudden a third popped up out of nowhere. So it was just like, okay, is there going to be any more twists that come up, or is it just these three? It didn't really explain what was going on, even though it was kind of an end of the world scenario, but there still wasn't a whole lot of development there.
Yeah, I see what you mean on that, because like at the very end of the game when you fight the Cabal, it's like, okay, we're fighting a new enemy. I guess I should have expected this because we're going to a new planet, but what about the Fallen, which kind of essentially just disappears towards the end of the game. You really don't see them much at all. Like, there's really no explanation for why they disappear, because I thought they were just like this one big race. It was kind of interesting that I don't know, they dropped the ball on it in that sense.
So as far as gameplay, the best way for me to describe it is taking Halo, Call of Duty, and an MMO like Guild Wars and just smashing it all into one game. I mean, as far as you're leveling up, building up weapons, upgrading weapons, just the overall aspect, it does a good job of mixing the whole first-person shooter and MMO into one game. I was actually really impressed with it.
For me, the best way to compare what Destiny actually is would be if you took Halo, which is obviously a Bungie game, and you smash it together with Borderlands, because you have, well, they're both really sci-fi games, but you take the Bungie element that made Halo, and then you take 2K's Borderlands, and basically, like you said, smash them together, and that's what you get. You get all the Bungie stuff, all the kind of alien stuff and everything from Bungie, and then you get the level development and a little bit of the story and a little bit of the side quests and stuff with the Borderlands side of things, and that's what kind of makes Destiny, though it doesn't really completely give you the best of both worlds, in my opinion. Now, on controllers, as far as control goes for the game, I've played both versions of it on the PS4. I've also played it on the Xbox One, obviously. That was the main version we played. And I have no real complaint on the controls. It plays just like any typical FPS, where the buttons are, assigned to where they need to be. So if you've played Call of Duty or if you've played a Halo, then you're not going to have any issues switching over to this. Left trigger obviously puts the sights up, right trigger shoots, all the pretty much basic stuff there.
Yeah, unless you're like me and you accidentally hit the grenade button for no apparent reason. But yeah, the controls reminded me a lot of Halo, actually, and with I hate to keep going back to Call of Duty, but there was a couple aspects of that were in there as far as different grenades and throwing knives and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say pretty much your classic FPS. Graphics, mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. They did such a great job with detail of the moon and Venus and the stars, especially towards the end of the game when you're getting to the last boss. It's just you walk out and it's just all you can say is wow. Like, you actually have to stop for a second before you even get to what you need to do, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, going to the different planets and seeing the different design for the particular level, because in a sense, each planet is really just one level, but there's different objectives and different parts that are opening up in it. And they seem so large, like they're bigger than they actually are. You can basically, when you're outside, look anywhere, and it just seems like it spans on. You can look up at the sky and just go, this looks incredible. This looks like something out of a science fiction movie, which it should. I have a hard time saying that, this is really next gen in terms of graphics, because I'd really like to see the Xbox 360 version and the PS3 version and see how all the scenery and stuff looks in that. I have to imagine it looks pretty good. I know we're still on the early portions of next gen hardware, but again, to keep going back to the next gen thing, this is a game that's on previous generation stuff, so I can't really call the graphics next gen, nor can I call the game really next gen, but still, it does look quite amazing. So next up we have sound and music, and in my opinion, Bungie has always shined in this department. Musically, the score is incredible. It picks up where it needs to pick up, and just when you think it can't pick up anymore, it does, and it pumps you up, especially when you're doing some of the strike missions and you're fighting some of the larger boss characters. It's really awesome, and it's creepy where it needs to be creepy. It's emotional where it needs to be emotional, which is awesome. Sound effects wise itself, it sounds a little too much like Halo, and I know, in the world of sci-fi, everything kind of has that laser sound to it, but it really sounds like they borrowed very heavily from the Halo sound library in terms of like the laser sound effects, like plasma rifle sounds like the autocannon and all that other stuff. Not autocannon, but the auto rifle. They sound very similar to each other. So I guess if you play Halo, you're going to really identify with the sounds really quick.
Yeah, definitely. That's another thing I noticed too. They did kind of borrow a lot more than just sound aspect, though, because a lot of the controls and the weapons seem to be taken from Halo as well, just kind of revamped and renamed. So moving on to multiplayer. Multiplayer is a blast. Even though we played 6-on-6 competitive, and it was cool. You can level up and still build up your items while you're playing in competitive mode, and it's very similar to, once again, Call of Duty as far as scoring wise. You're trying to get to a max score, or being the highest score for your team within the time limit. So I was impressed with the multiplayer aspect. I actually had a lot of fun, and it kind of reminded me of Halo 2. Not too overly crazy with special abilities and stuff like that. Just kind of your class abilities that you have in some vehicles. Would like to see more vehicles in it, though.
I agree with you on that aspect. I mean, obviously the multiplayer has to be decent in this game as a whole, because it's a multiplayer game. You cannot really play this game by yourself. I mean, you can, but you're going to miss most of the experience as far as being able to respawn and being able to survive essentially. So you're going to miss out a huge portion of it if you don't play with other people. Obviously, it works in terms of what it needs to do, having a 3-man fire team for the campaign portion of the multiplayer. The party system is easy to use. It works great on both systems. It's easy to find another person for your fire team. For example, Matt and I were doing the strike missions. It absolutely requires 3 people. And there were pretty minimal times when it was just the 2 of us fighting in those tough strike missions. The game was usually pretty good about getting us a 3rd player. Matt, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we had a couple dropouts, but they actually had a couple people actually be able to go into the middle of our game, so it wasn't like we completely lost that 3rd person. But with those missions, it's necessary to have a 3rd person just because of the amount of challenge in those strike missions. So they did a good job balancing it out. You could still do it with 2, but it was going to be very difficult to do.
Exactly. And now, Matt, a big discussion online is that they said that fire teams need to be bigger. Do you think that they should take the 3-man campaign storyline mode and raise it to 6, or would that be too much?
I could see 4, but 6, you're gonna blow through things way too easily. I could see a fourth person, but not 6.
So, like any good reviewer should do, they should have some kind of complaints about the game. And to start off, my complaint is that the campaign missions are few and far between. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of variety between them, and there's not a ton of them. Now, my thing is with the fact that you're going to these different planets and you're hitting these different areas, you would think that it would focus on a brand new area and you would explore that area and then you would finish that mission and you'd be done. But everything is all interconnected with each other, so you're hitting this new area of the planet and you're spawning in the same spot you were on the last stage. So it seems like they're recycling the levels a lot. I would just like to see a little bit more of a difference between the levels and expanding on that. The other thing is, because the campaign missions are so few, there's patrol missions that you can do that's really just made for grinding to get your level up so you can fight some of the tougher enemies later on in the game. But the grinding isn't really fun in these patrol missions. The objectives are so canned and kind of really boring. It wasn't until after we finished all the campaign missions that we found out that you could gain levels in the multiplayer mode, in the competitive multiplayer mode. Had I known that, I probably would have quickly jumped in just to do the patrol missions and got the hell out of there and went to competitive multiplayer just to bulk up my level.
Yeah, I agree. And some of the campaign missions also seemed really short, and when you think it was going to be really hard, it was actually pretty easy to get by. So, as far as you said with recycling, yeah, that's what I noticed. A lot of the missions, you were starting in the same place and pretty much going in the same direction. You were just going deeper into the place that you had been before. So, kind of annoying, and it kind of slowed the game down. But once it started getting to the end, they kind of got away from that, so it was a little bit better towards the end of the game. But I agree with the whole recycling thing. Kind of going to my point, when I first saw the game, I was under the impression that it was going to be a giant sandbox with multiple planets because it was going to be on a next-gen console. I was thinking Skyrim, on a multiple level of having these big, huge areas to explore, but you're going to be going to different planets, so there's going to be more bigger areas to explore with, your quests or your mission objectives. So I was a little bit disappointed when I saw it was kind of a mission-based and, going to, your loading screen before you get to, your actual mission. So it was a little disappointing for me.
So I think have you ever played Borderlands?
Yes, I have played Borderlands.
Okay.
Didn't really get into it all that much, but I have played it.
So you're looking something more towards that, though, where you have this just huge area that you're exploring.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was just kind of cut and dry and kind of pointing you to the direction that you needed to go in. So it's still a good game. It's just, that's my complaint. I was expecting a big sandbox with multiple planets and having big wide areas to explore. The competitive multiplayer. Bungie was really good with Halo, especially Halo 2 with the leveling system and trying to keep people in that same area of level. So like if you're level 10, you're going to be playing with other level 10s, maybe a 9, maybe 11, 12 if it can't match someone up. That's what I noticed. We were going against people that were level 23 that already had their subclass built up, and they were extremely difficult to kill, and it seemed like they would just be able to waste you within a couple of shots. So I think they need to balance out the competitive multiplayer a little bit more.
I would agree with that, and then to bring it back to the story, going through all of those missions and fighting all that stuff, and at the very end, kind of vanquishing everything that was thrown against you, you don't really feel like you accomplished much of anything. It's more like, yep, you did it, but here's some more stuff you got to fight. Like, I want to be invested in the story as far as, why I'm going out to all these different planets and why I'm fighting these creatures, and I want to know that I am actually doing something against all these different forces that are trying to wipe out like the last remnants of Earth. I don't know if they could, eventually put in a system, or if they had a system where it's the players versus the darkness, and every night when people fight in a certain level, it counts a certain percentage of taking that land and pits it against the darkness, and then the darkness is weaker or it's stronger at different points. I think they could really bring in something to scale so it feels like there is an overall threat to all of the players in the entire universe, rather than just the individual fighting hordes and hordes of endless enemies. So overall, I did enjoy the game. I'll definitely keep coming back to it. I want to keep exploring the competitive multiplayer mode and probably some of the strike missions once I figure out how to get past the level 20 cap. I really like the competitive multiplayer just because there's vehicles, and it really brings back that Halo aspect to it, like the early Halo games, which I loved. The other thing is, though, the game is going to need diversity, and just random strike missions and other stuff just isn't going to do it. They gotta find a way to make the game diverse, make it feel interesting in both the competitive multiplayer modes and the campaign multiplayer modes. But that has to be free diversity. If they're just going to make this a DLC fest where I need to pay another $100 to really get the full picture of Destiny, Destiny isn't going to last very long.
Yeah, I mean, if they come out with a couple expansions and they're not too expensive, I'll do it just to get more of a story mode, more gameplay, maybe some different enemies. But I could see maybe going back and playing as the other classes for a while, and that might be about it. I mean, the multiplayer is fun. I'd definitely jump on with other people to play, the competitive matchmaking. But other than that, I don't know if I'll really get too much into it after that.
And well, folks, there you go. That was my thoughts on Destiny, as well as Matt's thoughts. Matt, thanks for joining us to do this review.
Anytime.
And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.